From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus.
Good Sunday afternoon. Welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Tamara Sakarzik. You may have heard the term STEM used by educators. It's an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and math. STEM programs are a curriculum based on the idea that teaching those subjects with an applied approach rather than teaching them separately. STEM integrates them by using real-world applications and hands-on learning. In October, Massachusetts created the first STEM week in an effort to increase awareness of those fields of study and programs available from kindergarten through college. According to the Baker administration, Massachusetts has the most technology jobs per capita in the nation, and STEM occupations represent 17% of all employment in the Commonwealth. But even with these growing numbers of jobs in the field, not enough people are training or studying STEM subjects to prepare. This week on 22 News in Focus, we'll be discussing the STEM programs offered at several local colleges as well as high schools and youth organizations. Joining me today to discuss STEM education and programs in our region are Beth McGinnis Kavanaugh, a professor of physics and civil engineering technology at Springfield Technical Community College, Alicia Putnam, that is, the STEM Special Programs Coordinator at Greenfield Community College, Michelle Rame, the Holyoke Community College STEM Starter Academy Mentor Coordinator, and STEM Ambassador Gabriella Weaver, the Special Assistant to the Provost for Educational Initiatives at UMass Amherst. First, I'd like to talk to you guys about what STEM actually is. We know that what it stands for, but what does this mean in terms of the classroom?
Well, it's a very interdisciplinary, integrated approach to learning, and it encompasses many subject areas and prepares students for many areas of work and employment.
Is there anything anyone would like to add to that?
Well, as she mentioned, it's integrated not only within the STEM disciplines, science, technology, engineering, and math, but also with some of the other disciplines that are traditionally not thought of as being part of STEM, like art and agriculture and economics and design. More and more the STEM disciplines are becoming integrated with those fields as well.
What types of academic programs involving STEM are available right here in Western Massachusetts?
So at HEC we have the STEM Starter Academy. We also have a collaboration of Girls Inc. We have NSF Scholars, so the National Science Foundation STEM declared major students can apply for this scholarship, and it helps them in the success of their education throughout school.
At virtually all of the community colleges in Western Mass, we offer both transfer and terminal degree programs in STEM. So terminal degree programs are 2-year programs that prepare students for the workforce. Transfer programs prepare them to transfer into various majors at 4-year institutions.
Okay, so these are high school students that?
No, college
students that would be transferring into.
Right,
okay.
Right.
What types of majors involve STEM at a college level?
Well, engineering, of course, any of the life sciences, mathematics, yeah, pretty much anything that deals with science, technology, engineering, or mathematics.
And I know that with a lot of college majors that mentorship is extremely important, especially when it comes to kind of getting to the level of being able to enter the workforce after college. So is this something that you encourage with STEM fields?
Absolutely. Mentorship, not only do we expect that our faculty will be mentoring some of the undergraduates, but we also engage undergraduates in mentorship relationships with each other, mentoring relationships with graduate students. We have programs where faculty can be trained on best practices in mentoring. So mentoring, we know, is one of the keys to actually helping retain students, especially underrepresented students and women in the STEM disciplines. And so we put a great deal of emphasis on the mentoring relationship for students.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly about how important mentorship is for students interested in going through the STEM pipeline. Specifically at GCC, our faculty and our staff as a whole, our whole community mentors our students one-on-one, and then within specific set groups like NSF scholarship groups, various STEM academies and the like. Those mentorship relationships allow students to have support as they're trying to navigate through their college experience. Oftentimes at a school like ours at Greenfield Community, we have a lot of first-generation college students who are trying to figure things out, and so that mentorship is even more important for those students as they're trying to navigate what the next steps are, how they get through their courses, and what it looks like for their life beyond GCC, whether it be into the workforce or transferring to a four-year institution.
And when talking about mentorships, would you say this is something that most colleges already have in place, where they kind of have a program where to make sure you have a mentor, or is it something that the student has to take on behalf of themselves?
I think naturally faculty serve as mentors. I think there is certainly research shows the importance of mentorship at the college level and even beyond in the workplace. So I think there is definitely a trend now to establish mentor programs at every level of the engineering or STEM pipeline.
Yeah, I agree. Peer mentoring is also equally as important as industry mentoring. Having somebody who has been in your shoes and can help lead you to the next step and kind of show you the resources so you're not hunting around. Because I remember in the first years of school, I didn't know all the resources available to me, and having a student who has been in my shoes recently and is doing what I'm doing was extremely important in my success in moving forward. And so we have a couple of different mentoring programs at our school. Some that they connect our NSF scholars with our SSA students, which is our STEM Starter Academy students. And then currently we're trying to create a pathway that brings industry leaders and students together so they can kind of see what that path is going to look like as they're moving through school and when they get out of school.
And speaking of that, do any of your other organizations work side by side with businesses?
We have, the college works directly with businesses to promote experiential learning. We also have groups like the Society of Women Engineers, for example, collegiate chapters. We have one at STIC on campus that works with the national professional organization. Those are very beneficial experiences for students.
And we also, like at STIC, we have relationships with industry where we can provide students with internship opportunities either through the summer or as part of the academic year, where they're able to get hands-on experience with those companies.
Speaking of internships, I know that the number kind of differs depending on the field. For example, me going into TV broadcast journalism, it was recommended that I had as many internships as possible to prove you can work in a newsroom. What about STEM? How many internships is average, if there even is an average?
I think go ahead.
I wouldn't say that there is an average. It really depends on the type of experience that a student is trying to get. For example, if a student is doing research in a laboratory with a faculty member, and that is enough to give them a sense of what they want to end up doing, then that might be where they stop and they keep working with that faculty member. Or they might go on to do research and then an internship and then another internship, because they may still be looking for their best fit in STEM. STEM is not a single thing, and so they may use those internship opportunities to be searching.
Do you want to add something to that?
Oh, I definitely agree that I don't know if there's necessarily an average. It's really very student specific, particularly at GCC for our students. Our internship program is actually how we engage with our business partners, industry partners as well, and we connect our students with these businesses that allow them to have an experience in the STEM workforce, and that internship opportunity, like my colleague here was saying, kind of serves as an opportunity for a student to get hands-on experience that kind of confirms for them what they really want to do, or might kind of open their eyes to see that maybe this might not be where they want to be with their STEM career, and to try something else. So.
And internships are obviously very important, but back to the school experience itself, what types of courses fall under STEM other than the obvious of science, technology, math?
So there is a lot of courses. You can you have physics. You have to take your core classes, so your Englishes, your developmental math, college algebra. You're taking your sciences, biology, chemistry. And then there's all kinds of math. Calc 1 through Calc 3 is usually the typical engineering path. But then also in other schools you have like history and psychology. You have to take cultures classes. So your degree looks similar. There's core classes that start you off in college, and then as you go into more specific majors, they kind of gear towards that specific topic.
All right. Thank you for that information. Good to know that it's the opposite of how my brain thinks. We'll continue our conversation after a short break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about STEM education and programs offered at local colleges. We've discussed the programs available for students enrolled at all of your schools, and we wanted specifically to touch on the fact that these programs are not just for men, which you often think about when you think of science, technology, and math, but also a good path for women to take. Did you want to start that?
I think a great place to jump in there is to talk about Girls Inc. here in Massachusetts and their work in the Eureka program, which is a program that brings students to UMass for a month in the summertime to work on projects having to do with various different topics of STEM. You'll be hearing more about Girls Inc., but that's definitely an example of a program that allows us to create a specific pathway to encourage girls and other underrepresented groups as well into STEM disciplines.
When it comes to STEM disciplines, do we usually see, is this like a male-dominated industry for the most part, industries?
Yes, it still is. Women and minorities are underrepresented in every area of STEM, with the possible exception of health sciences. And in engineering, they are underrepresented more than in any other area. So it's a very critical issue. It's an issue, first of all, of equity, to make sure that everybody is involved. And it's also an issue of diversity. STEM fields, STEM workers typically are solving some of the biggest challenges we face. It makes sense and it's important to make sure that there are many voices at those tables when those solutions are being made.
And the types of jobs we're talking about here, engineering was a big one that you guys have kept mentioning. That's a good paying job.
Yes, all STEM fields are good paying jobs, to be honest, more than other fields on average. But yes, engineering is a very good paying job in a field that has many possibilities.
I know if I was at home right now, I'd be thinking about some of the possible starting salaries. Do you guys have any numbers in mind for what, for example, an engineer starts at? I know it would depend on the type of engineer, but let's say we're talking about a civil engineer or a chemical engineer.
So a mechanical engineer can start around 65 to 75, depending on where they go with it. Civil engineering is a little bit lower. You can start maybe around 65,000. As a civil engineer, you have to become licensed, and so once you get licensed, after you do your 4 years of like on-field work, and you're backed by other licensed civil engineers, and then you kind of break out of that cap, and you can go up into the 80s and 90s with more years of experience. But out the bat, all STEM majors their income wage is way higher than most other disciplines.
Yes, so STEM jobs definitely have a higher paying salary. I believe the statistics is like 26% more in salary than non-STEM. However, both non-STEM and STEM have the gender wage gap. So that's something that we still need to address. Even though we are paid more in the STEM fields, women are still paid less than men. I believe that it was about anywhere between 9 to 16% less than men in STEM. So that's something that we need to be aware of as women in STEM and supporting women in STEM.
What do you think it would take to change that?
Empowered women empower women.
Agreed.
So do you think if you're, I don't know, a high school teenager at home watching this show and you are a woman and you want to go into the STEM field, what's a way to make sure that you are getting paid what you deserve?
Knowledge. Knowledge is power. Getting yourself into educational programs. For example, at our school, we have the STEM Starter Academy, which actually is at all of the 15 community colleges across the state. At our school, we offer a summer STEM bridge program where students can come take a free course, earn college credit, whether they are in high school, whether they are a recent graduate. or if they're still trying to figure out what major they're interested in. So I really encourage women and folks from underrepresented groups in particular to join our academy to get that foundation and really to be able to explore STEM, to learn about the field that they're interested in, because as well as taking the course in our summer program, the students receive extracurricular enrichment outside of the classroom to learn about STEM jobs and women in STEM and what trajectories they can go off on. So I would say for women, for young girls thinking about STEM and their future, to just get involved. It's never too early to start. Middle school, in primary school, it's never too early to be thinking about their future and learning about STEM and women in STEM.
You mentioned a summer program, which I really like because it can be so difficult for kids to actually go to after school programs after a full school day and then extracurriculars and this, that, and the other thing. Are there any other programs like that available?
There are a number of programs that, STEM Starter and Eureka are summer programs, but there are also programs that are one-day programs or programs that are done at the schools themselves. Some of our work with 4-H, for example, are programs that can happen on the weekends, and we've got a great deal of interaction through that. Many of our faculty also engage with schools by going to those schools or having groups of those students come one day a week to the campus, and that's as part of their own research. So there are a number of different ways and a number of different scheduling options that can work for students.
What are the best ways that parents and students can find out about these programs?
I think the colleges and universities advertise them fairly well. But I think contacting anybody, for example, at STIC, in a STEM program or in our marketing department, they would be able to tell you about the offerings that the college has.
You can find out about the Eureka program, about the STEM Starter Academy through the Massachusetts Department of Education website, and that actually links to the programs, the STEM Starter programs at all of the community colleges, so you can get one-stop shopping there.
And when would you say that community colleges started getting really big into STEM? Is it because of what they started seeing in the industry?
There's a huge need in the industry. The economy wants STEM majors, and so right now that's what the schools are trying to do. They're trying to build all of their commitment to STEM majors with their students.
And I think also student need. Our students have expressed what they're interested in the STEM fields, and that has caused us at our college to start to create majors that maybe we didn't have initially because we are the smallest community college in the state. So also meeting our students' need as well is how that kind of rolled around.
So can you talk about some of the majors that started fairly recently at Greenfield Community College?
So we are actually in the process of creating an Associate of Science in Environmental Science. Environmental science is really important, and we've had a lot of students that are interested in pursuing that study, so that has pushed us to create the Associate of Science for them.
What types of jobs can you get with a degree in environmental science?
A student could become an environmental consultant working at a firm. They can be an educator. They can go into policy. The jobs are really pretty diverse in terms of what they can do with environmental science in particular.
Does anyone have anything?
Well, that's one of the things to keep in mind, I think, about STEM disciplines and STEM majors is that if a student majors, say, in chemistry, that doesn't mean they're only going to have the opportunity to work as a chemist, but it gives them a great variety of types of jobs and even different fields that they can be prepared for and that they will be competitive in. So these majors have value beyond just the one job that might be associated with the name in people's minds.
So in other words, if you really enjoy a major, whether it's physics, chemistry, but you're thinking, I don't want to be a chemist someday, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a chemist. There are other options. Okay, and I know that we were talking a little bit about some of the other programs that your schools offer. Does anyone else want to add something about that?
A lot of faculty at colleges, 2-year and 4-year institutions, have research grants through which they work with a variety of partners, educational partners, industry partners. At STIC, we have several faculty who are working with Springfield Public Schools, developing curriculum, myself included, developing curriculum to assist teachers in teaching engineering along with science. That's fairly common. So those programs provide great outreach. They teach us a lot about what is happening in K-12, and it allows us to reach students very early on in the pipeline.
And speaking of research, even community colleges and their students can take part in research programs. At our school, we've been developing programs to involve students in experiential learning and research. Our faculty member, Amanda Hyde, spearheads a salamander ecology research project that students can learn how to do research hands-on right at a community college level. And oftentimes, community college students don't always feel as prepared when they move into the 4-year school regarding having research experience. So a lot of the community colleges have started to move towards including research into research experiences into their programs.
All right. Very informative stuff and very important for any student who's interested in this stuff. We'll continue our conversation after a short break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about STEM programs, and we mentioned a little earlier that STEM occupations are on the rise here in Massachusetts. So what types of occupations are really in demand right now?
Well, I know that 40 to 50% of the jobs in Massachusetts are STEM related and require skilled STEM workers. There is a huge gap. It's predicted to be about a shortage of about 1 million workers over the next 5 or 10 years. Massachusetts is a very high-tech state, very big in biomedical and life sciences, so those fields are very hot right now.
Also, solar is a huge thing, so sustainability is a large focus currently. Also, civil engineers, there will always be a job for a civil engineer. They work for the people, so there's a large need for that.
Also, computer sciences and environmental sciences. Health sciences of a variety of kinds are always in need, and those are growing as well.
So let's break down what some of these careers actually do once you're in the field itself. What you just mentioned, health sciences, what do you do? What are the different jobs?
Well, there are a variety of different jobs in the health sciences. People often think of, their primary care type of people, but there are also people who work in the technologies of developing instruments for health monitoring, or people who are working on the actual information systems. So those involve a lot of computer science skills, and though they are applied to the health sciences. So there are a variety of different types of jobs.
And when I think of relating this back to Western Massachusetts, I was specifically thinking about civil engineers, because we just had the huge I-90 run reconstruction project. We have plenty of other projects across the state. How does that fit into civil engineering? Who's the civil engineer? What would they actually be doing in a project like that?
Go ahead.
Civil engineers cover areas in transportation, structural, construction and structures, environmental and geotechnical, which deals with foundations. So in any project, any system that services people, for example, water systems, infrastructure, pipes and that sort of thing, bridges, roadways, all of that is handled by civil engineers. They can be doing things from actual design, project management, scheduling. There's a range within civil engineering of occupations and jobs.
How about computer sciences? Where does that take you?
Computer sciences can take you almost anywhere. I'm sure that you have people with computer science backgrounds working at this studio, as well as people who are going to be working on engineering projects, health sciences projects. We've got an election coming up, and there's going to be something involving computer sciences having to do with the way that votes are counted, and It's such a broad area. As I mentioned before, these are the kinds of degrees that can open doors for you that certainly from the perspective of a high school student, you might not even know the kinds of careers that are going to be open to you and are going to be of interest to you once you're further along in that path.
Is it fairly easy once you have a career in any of the above that we were talking about, for example, civil engineering, you're working on highways and bridges for the most part, is it fairly easy to transition to a different aspect of that career if you wanted to switch to design?
I think it's fairly easy to do that. A lot of people transfer or switch to, for example, my sister's an engineer, she's an industrial engineer, and worked for years in the defense industry and then transitioned into a financial position. I work with somebody who was a chemical engineer who transferred her skills into technical writing. So within STEM fields are a springboard for many other occupations. So within the field itself, there is a lot of room for movement, and there's also movement out of those fields into other areas.
And kind of along the same lines as that, what about with the other industries that we were talking about, like with health sciences? Would that sometimes require more schooling depending on what you're doing?
I would say it's really difficult to generalize. Yes, depending on what you're doing in the health sciences, you're going to have some situations where you're going to need to have a specialty degree to move into an area, and then there are other ways where you can actually translate your skills to another type of application.
So we've been talking about how high in demand these jobs are, all of these types of STEM jobs. Are businesses contacting your schools for professional contacts? Are they already looking to kind of get ready for the next graduating class of students?
We're contacted constantly. Different fields are and different programs are hotter than others. I know at STIC, for example, the two that come to mind are optics and photonics and advanced manufacturing. Huge demands in those fields. In fact, we cannot produce enough graduates to fill those slots. But in general, in the STEM fields, there are jobs ready and waiting, and there are employers who are after our students.
That's something you guys have seen too?
Yeah, same at GCC. Also regarding the advanced manufacturing. So we're just continuing to recruit students in, provide them with quality education and strong student support, and help them navigate on what is their end goal, whether it be to jump into that workforce right away or to transfer into continuing their education and then jump into the workforce.
And what's really great is a lot of companies, when you're first getting out of college, backtracking a little to your previous question, when you first get out, there's a lot of movement for you to go into a company and kind of explore different departments and see which hats fit you the best. And then also being in the STEM fields, it's really great that companies typically they want to invest in their employees, and so they want you to better your education. They want you to get your master's degree, and they want to pay you more money for it.
So are there any programs where they actually pay for your master's degree? Because I know that's certain careers.
Yes, so there, it's not that it's a program, but there's a lot of companies that you can work for, and they'll give you this almost like a stipend. So they'll say, we'll give you this much money, and you can take so many classes over this time working for us while you attain your degree and work for us at the same time.
All right, that's good to hear. Definitely good for people at home to know. When we come back, we'll learn about a STEM program that focuses on girls. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about science, technology, engineering, and math, also known as STEM. Joining me now to talk about Eureka, a STEM program offered through Girls Inc. of Holyoke, is Suzanne Parker, the Executive Director of Girls Inc. of Holyoke, and Jadalette Rivera Colon, a member of the Girls Inc. Board of Directors. So tell us about Girls Inc. and your mission there.
Sure. Our mission is to inspire girls to be strong, smart, and bold. And we do that by a number of ways, but we do it with primarily what we call a Girls Inc. experience, and that's a girl-only environment with awesome, incredible programs and with people who are trained professionals who have really wonderful mentoring relationships.
What would you say the need is for opportunities for girls in STEM careers? How important is this?
So it is really important. a recent student study that I was just reading before coming here just showed that at least in the field of physics, so I'm a biophysicist, so in the field of physics it would take about 258 years to close the gap between men and women in order to publish scientific papers. So just by thinking about that, that means that for every living physicist and mathematician, they would not get to see that gap closing. Not them, not their kids or their grandkids.
That is just depressing. So let me ask you, how did you two get involved in STEM?
Well, being the Girls Inc. executive director, I saw the writing on the wall. I've been there for now 12 years, and looking at the needs of the girls that we serve and the obstacles that get in their way to really develop into their full potentials, STEM just makes so much sense. As you heard earlier from your panelists, the opportunities for economic security is there with STEM careers and STEM fields. So it was a no-brainer for our affiliate here in Holyoke to launch what you've been hearing about, the Eureka program. And I have to say, so Jody here is not only a board member, but as you heard, she is a scientist herself, and she's at Bay Path College as a professor there. She's what I call my STEM shero. So we are totally committed to helping create and fill that pipeline of young women who are inspired to pursue STEM careers.
So how did you get involved in this?
So I was a scientist at University of Pennsylvania before I came here, and I saw this job opening at Bay Path University. And I had done a little bit of community service out here, and I knew that I wanted to come back. And I got back, I got to interview for Bay Path. It was a great experience, and I said, well, I want to actually be out there in the community and do outreach and really reach out to girls, because Bay Path University is a women's college. So trying to recruit more girls into STEM. So I don't want the job if I won't be able to work with the community. So as part of this, I had the opportunity to go to a community-based event at Mount Holyoke College with one of my friends, Josie Valentin, and she introduced me to the Eureka program. As soon as I saw Girls Inc., strong, smart, bold, I was like, I have to get in. Like, this is exactly what I want to do, and that's how I ended up then eventually being recruited to be as a board member.
So she's actually done workshops with some of the girls from Eureka. There's a lot involved with Eureka, but partnerships is one of the key pieces.
Yeah.
So let's explain what exactly is Eureka. I feel like we've been talking about it, but haven't really.
So Eureka is a STEM program, and it's for high school girls, and it's actually a 5-year program. We recruit the girls when they just finished 7th grade, and it's from area schools everywhere from Holyoke and Chicopee and Springfield and even Westfield. And they start that summer after their 7th grade. They spend 4 weeks primarily going to the University of Massachusetts of Amherst campus. And there they spend half their time in STEM workshops, everything from structural engineering, biochemistry labs. It's incredible the experiences that they're getting. It's almost like a little tester of all sorts of STEM fields. They also spend 25% of their time in health and wellness, because it's one thing to be inspired to pursue STEM, but also, are you healthy? Are you making healthy decisions in your life? And also around personal development. So it's a really solid 4-week program. They do that for 2 summers, so summer after 7th grade, summer after 8th grade. In 9th grade, after they finish that, they're doing an externship. You heard them talking about that at the college level. We're having girls who are just about to be sophomores doing externships in businesses in the area. So for example, we recently had a girl, she was an extern at Kuhn Riddle Architects, which is an incredible STEM experience for her. We had one young woman at the Pioneer Valley Life Sciences Center lab working in a histology lab. So it's a really awesome program. And then years 4 and 5 are focused on college and career readiness. What is that pathway? What do you need to do to make sure now you're getting those college essays run, getting your, your financial aid, actually taking college tours so that girls can see that future for themselves?
Through this program, have you guys found that this is really increasing the interest of STEM fields for girls? What have you been seeing?
So for me, when I started at Girls Inc. and I saw the Eureka program, I said, well, UMass is a great resource for them to be able to really see all these experiences, but that's not the only college experience. So I wanted them to come to Bay Path and see how it would be the college experience at Bay Path. So recently we had, during the Eureka summer, we had an Escape the Room. And the Escape the Room was forensic science focused. So they really had to solve problems, do chemistry, biology, physics to be able to get out of the room. And many of them were saying things like, wow, I never thought that physics could be so cool. And that is it. So even before that, the summer before that, we did the science of car racing. So they were designing cars and figuring out how to make the fastest car possible. So these are things that are not necessarily associated with girls. But you should have seen how excited they were and how they were like, I want to have a Mustang when I grow up, and I'm going to be the only one who works on it.
So it sounds like you guys have really taken this educational program that, I mean, thinking back to high school, it doesn't sound like it's that much fun, and just really made it into this exciting, fun thing. Like you said, car racing. Who doesn't that sound fun with?
I think that's the key, and an opportunity for a youth development organization like Girls Inc. and having an incredible partnership with UMass and so many of the area colleges and businesses is we can have this hands-on, really exciting, real-life experiences for the girls, and that's really inspiring. And we know for girls what helps them see that pathway in STEM is they want to know that it's helping solve real-world problems. They need to connect it to their lives. If it's something out there, it just doesn't connect to them. But we have to sort of take away the stigma that a scientist is somebody who's just always in a lab coat, although that's okay too, because there's a lot of jobs wearing lab coats. But so really take that stigma away that, you know, it can be them. And so to have somebody like Jody who's involved with the program and all of the wonderful volunteers that we have at UMass and the other colleges, it truly makes a difference in helping inspire them.
Jody, would you say that you've been really seeing a change in the industry from when you were, let's say, in middle school to now with females getting involved?
So I would say that I wish there were more, for sure. And what I'm seeing is that there are more women actually going out there serving as mentors for students nowadays, which is something that was different from my time. And companies are trying to be more sensitive about really providing some of those female mentors as well. But it's not as fast as I wish it would be.
You yourself, you're a scientist. How did you get involved?
In science, well, first I thought I would be a nurse because that's what girls do. And I quickly realized while working as a licensed practical nurse that I could do better because I already knew things that the doctor was missing. So I realized that I had to get my pre-med degree. And while I was there, I was given the opportunity, actually by UMass, to do my first research experience as an undergrad student in the chemistry department. And when I did that, I realized, wait, I can actually solve the problems and create the solutions that the doctors use. I'd rather do that. That is much more exciting than doing the same thing in and out. So definitely, right after I stepped into a lab, and for the first time, I had a discovery that no one else in the world knew. That hooked me.
I love this. We have two trailblazers with us. All right, so girls' education, very important for STEM. How are high schools preparing students for STEM professions? We'll learn more about that after the break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we've been talking about science, technology, engineering, math, or STEM educational programs. Public schools are the first line for students to learn about career opportunities. Many school districts have begun offering STEM-specific classes to help students prepare for technical schools and college after graduation. Vocational and technical high schools have historically offered this type of career path and students going to work right after graduation. Joining me now to talk about what STEM programs are being offered in high schools are Kate Perez, math supervisor at Westfield Public Schools, Lauren Figge, science, the technology and engineering supervisor at Westfield Public Schools, and Kate Powell, a science teacher at Westfield High School. So Westfield High School has two different types of schools. Am I reading that correctly? It's two high schools. Okay, I was like, what am I reading on that teleprompter? All right. So what types of STEM programs do they offer?
So we have two different high schools in Westfield. So the first one is just Westfield High School, and then our second school is Westfield Technical Academy. So as we talk about shops, we have Westfield Technical Academy, so we offer 12 different programs at that school specific to different careers that students might be very interested in. And they range from manufacturing, we have the aviation program, and You know, we have allied health, so there's just a range, there's 12 different ones, and each one of them has something to do with STEM, which is really awesome for those kids to be exposed to that in high school and given the opportunity to work with that. And then our second high school is just our academic school, our Westfield High School, and there we offer a multitude of different science, math, engineering, and technology classes. We have different AP classes. We range from animal behavior, calculus, algebra, biology. So we have all of these different courses that help to prepare them.
I think it's 36 different STEM classes we offer at Westfield High School, which is a large, and 8 AP.
8 AP. Yep.
8 advanced placement classes.
So those are
in
classes
STEM.
that students can take, and then it can count towards their college
So
credit.
they'll take a test at the end of the course, and if they get a qualifying score on that test, then hopefully they can get credit for college. And if they don't, if anything, it's just exposure to the rigor that they'll experience in college, so it helps to prepare them in that way.
Would you say the classes at these schools have become more in demand?
When I was in high school, I went to Westfield High School, and when I went to Westfield High School, this is my AP Bio teacher.
Oh, awesome.
There was one class of it offered, and now at Westfield High School, we have 3 sections of it offered. So I do feel like the variety of courses we've offered has increased, and the amount we've had to offer.
Why is it so important to kind of change up the variety and make sure you have several different classes as opposed to this is your math, this is your science, this is, you know?
I think that we want to make sure that kids have a well-rounded education. We want to make sure that they're being exposed to the things that they're interested in, because otherwise you show up in college and you're like, what am I doing? What am I interested in? I have no idea. So having all those different opportunities is really, it's essential for them.
And having the electives that we have, it gives children the exposure to see what is opportunities that they can take when they are in college. You know, we have an anatomy and physiology course at the high school. A lot of high schools don't offer that, but yet it's something that if you're interested in the allied health field or really a multitude of other things that you can do with the anatomy and physiology, it's a great course to have, and it's probably our most popular STEM course at the high school.
Have you guys seen with your classes, we were talking a little bit earlier about the whole gender issue where STEM careers, a lot of men tend to go towards them as opposed to women. What have you been seeing at the high school level?
For the first year in our AP Physics class, the number of girls equal the number of boys. Usually awesome. That doesn't happen, and I shouldn't say that as like that's the norm, because in the physical science, you know, chemistry and physics fields, we find that girls' participation is lower, and we actively combat that through a lot of different resources. Right now, when a student enters 7th and 8th grade, they go through career counseling, they do an interest survey. We have a career and college readiness counselor at Westfield at a district level where she goes between the 2 high schools, and she helps counsel kids and makes decisions based on what they're interested in and helps steer them to make decisions in their future.
Modeling is important too. And we have 2 new supervisors in our school who are both women, and they are our STEM supervisors. So that's also, it's important. It's important to put women in positions where they can be mentors and they can be models, and girls can see what there is out there for them and not realize that it's something that they can't do.
Right, totally. Because if you see someone doing it, then you know that it's possible because they're doing it.
Right.
As for when these people graduate from high school and they want to go to college, do you guys partner with any colleges?
The better question is which college don't we partner with locally? We have wonderful relationships with a bunch of the local area colleges. One that comes to mind is Westfield State University. We have what's called the Westfield Promise Fellowship, or the Westfield Promise Fellowship, where students take classes. It's a early college pathway, and they are allowed to get college credit while still in high school, and we're building that up, and it's been very successful, and we're starting to build that more towards math and science.
Have you seen a lot of students going to college to major in these types of STEM majors?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, some of the other partnerships, we've partnered with STCC,
Allied Health.
Right.
Yeah, we took a lovely tour thanks to our superintendent. We were trying to see what they had to offer us, and oh my goodness, what they're doing there, it's just fascinating. And you know, having a collaboration with them to also, like I think we heard earlier, for them to know what we're doing at our level, they can better prepare for what is coming in for them at their level, and we can make these collaborations a little bit more successful.
And I think it's really important to talk about too, we start this really early. So in our intermediate school, which is our 5 and 6 school, and in our middle school, 7 and 8, we partner with Westfield State, and we have a program called Math Circle. So we have a professor from Westfield State that comes in and sits with the kids, and it's an after-school program, and they just kind of engage in all of the neat things that math has to offer, and shows them all of these cool tricks that math has, and just all of these things that you don't realize in your everyday life, and it sort of makes it relatable and relevant to them, and they have a great time. It's fun. So we're starting it early because it's so important.
So I know that when I was in high school, I hate to use this term, but we often said teaching to the test, because it was always about gotta pass that MCAS, gotta do well on the MCAS to bring up the scores. So do you think schools are kind of going back to making sure that students are having fun with it as well, so that they actually want to do it later in life?
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
If you don't engage nowadays, you really can't get their attention to do anything. You have to be engaging, and you have to give hands-on things to do.
You're competing against a cell phone.
Right.
So
there's and that's where all our professional development time has been focused, is to try to get us to do things that are far more engaging with the students, and
hopefully if they enjoy it,
right,
they're going to do better on the test anyway. I mean, and that's the plan. It should, you teach the standards and you make it fun, and then the rest will just follow.
And there's been a new rollout recently in 2016 of science, technology, and engineering standards in the state, and the state has recognized on that level, they focus on the 8 practices of science, so it's much more hands-on, and it allows teachers more flexibility to do those higher order thinking.
Have you found that businesses are also contacting schools about this?
Yes, absolutely. So in Westfield, we have a partnership it's called Westfield Education to Business Alliance. So it's a program, and they contact us for students, and the students get to participate in different businesses around the area. And then again, at our technical academy, many of our seniors at the Tech Academy have the opportunity during shop week to, instead of going to shop, go out and actually work at the vocation that they've worked on this whole time. So they've spent 3 years learning this shop, and now they get to go out every other week and actually do it. And most of them will graduate high school with a job, which is really awesome.
Yeah, that's what everyone's looking for. All right, we'll have the last word for you after the break. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we've been talking about science, technology, engineering, and math, also known as STEM educational programs, and the professions available in those fields. That's our program for today. We want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and thank you at home for watching. If you missed any of this, you can watch it in full on our website at wwlp.com. From all of us here at 22 News, we wish you a wonderful Sunday. Bye.